Hi Marius,
Hi Nick, good to see you.
let's discuss the topic you wanted to propose.
Cool, sounds good. Topic for today, we would like to talk about focus at work, productivity, also at home with your friends and family. As you know, focus is not so easy to achieve sometimes. We are disturbed by many things in life. Maybe a colleague comes in to the office or somebody calls you. Your phone has all the notifications. There's a new task at work. Somebody at home wants you to do something for them or something is on your to-do list. So many things that can take our focus away. But on the other hand, we would like to discuss today how we can find focus at work and at home to then achieve better results and be happy about the work that we do.
My name is Nick. I'm a software developer and I ship payment systems, which are breathtaking responsibility. We can screw up anything, but definitely not people's money. So therefore, my second name is Quality. Just joking. Together with Marius, we are talking in this podcast about different psychological things, philosophical things, and self-acceptance and understanding. And for me, it's important because it fulfills my life, it makes it different, it helps to realize different sides of the coin.
Hi, my name is Marius. I'm a designer with a background in psychology and education. I've been working in the field for 20 years with companies like Microsoft, Qualcomm, Sony, and others, and now have a team of 10 people with offices in Munich and Berlin. I like to discuss these topics with Nick from a designer side as a creative, talking to a developer who's a good friend of mine for many years.
Really good topic, Marius. Let's do it. Actually, I think productivity matters will follow us for our whole life. I think for digital creators, the focus on productivity is a topic that we will try to fine-tune and master throughout the whole career because it plays so significant role, I consider.
Yeah, totally. I think I found it a very interesting topic because last time we talked about your career, right? You can build your career by yourself and focusing on a topic like short term right now, what you want to achieve, but also maybe mid or long term is something that's now not so easy, right? Like you're not in school and maybe there is not somebody who tells you by the end of this term or in 1 year, you will have to finish this. As we all know, there's exams and tests. So they give us a deadline. But now it's mostly up to us to find deadlines for things that we want to achieve, especially if we work freelance or lead a team. So I'll be very curious to see how it is for you because I now following you over the last few years. You've also had quite a few changes in your life, right? Like having a family and working from home, working as a freelancer. So I'll be very curious to hear like what kind of strategies you have or how you like to focus.
Well, I have some hacks, ideas, and what I employed during the years. But maybe before we jump into these really practical suggestions that I will share, how about we discuss like the problems, like why do we need focus? What interrupts us? At which state we don't want to be interrupted? And so, what do you think from that perspective? Like, what bothers you? For example, let's start with work. What bothers you during the day that you feel drains your energy and reduces your productivity, Marius?
Yeah, good idea. I also like the idea of putting it into a 1 day at work or 1 day with work. Could already start, when you wake up. Maybe you had a bad night's sleep for several reasons. And you already find it pretty hard to focus in the beginning, set up your day, think about what you like to do. That's something I think most people can relate to in some ways. Today I had a good day or a good night's sleep, but yesterday was a different story. So people might set up their day in the morning. I usually do. When I wake up, I take some time after breakfast, think about what's up today. I look at my calendar. I think about how I want to structure the day, whom I want to talk to in team or what projects we will work on. And in that phase in the morning, I think it's already a big factor to be distracted by other things. Like things that, like you mentioned, bother you. So on the one side, you might forget things because you're not very focused health-wise, because you're not so awake. But on the other hand, you also have other tasks coming in, right? Like maybe from your family or your private life, somebody wants to meet up in the afternoon. There's lots of notifications on your phone. It's also something I want to discuss later. It's a big distraction. All the things come up. You go to work and then there's a lot of other things that need to be done. You had maybe an idea of how the day looks, but then you open your mailbox, you have Slack open, you have Teams open, Zoom calls coming in. So that structure that you kind of laid out in the morning doesn't really work anymore. That's one thing that can happen. And on the other side, of course, we work in a environment where everything is very flexible. So maybe we have a task planned, but there's a bug coming in, or maybe there's something else coming in, high priority, that needs to be fixed. Long list, probably just talked for over a minute about all the distractions that could come up.
Totally makes sense. The same for me
Mm.
actually used to be, and sometimes happens still. I think the first like practical tip that makes sense to accept and confirm that we are humans and we don't have to strive for ideation there.
Yeah.
Whatever system you will employ, whatever try habits to build for that to prevent interruption, you will still be vulnerable sometimes to get interrupted anyway. You know, maybe only if you go in the wild and completely isolate yourself from the internet connection. But even there,
Right.
I'm sure that you won't be able to just stay there for many hours, meditate, because maybe the tiger will jump in of the jungle.
Totally.
So yeah, well, with the sleep, I would say there are many theoretical and practical knowledge how to fix it for people. And I think there is a famous Google expert, I don't remember his name, who is a scientist of sleep. I will
Nice.
put it somewhere in comments later in this episode. And he has brilliant videos on YouTube explaining how you prepare for a sleep. And so the maximum, let's say, steps you have to make in favor to truly relax during the night. But we have different factors that impact that. In my case, kids, this is unpredictable. And therefore, I don't do this kind of special routine. I try to do the routine with kids to make them go sleep at a certain hour. And hopefully the night will be calm and so, but it's not guaranteed. And therefore, I truly feel you that I could wake up broken. But does this mean that I should like be negative about this for a whole day and so? No. You just accept the life how it is and move forward. And the point is, as I said, you accept that you are human, you could be interrupted, and that doesn't have to be something that will ruin your life, ruin your day emotionally. You know, it happened.
Good point.
It won't happen every day for sure. It happened last night, for example. You continue, okay? And then the biggest second tip that I think, beyond just accepting things that you are human, the second tip that I would give here is don't strive for complexity. So do things as simple as possible. And this is not only for you to boot up after a bad sleep, let's say, into a good working day, but it's related to everything productivity. Do simple, simplify as much as possible. A good story, for example, we are building now an app with one of my teammates, not at work, but in my spare time for educational business. And we could invest a lot of time into putting up the app together, programming, designing, ideation. But we decided that what would be the simplest solution? Let's use no-code editor, put this together to verify whether people will be interested in that, whether it will be relevant for them. This will take a day to build up in comparison to weeks probably to build something.
Months, who knows?
Months maybe, And the same applies to anything you do. For example, now we are recording a podcast, okay? I could fabricate the environment around me. I could make up the room here where actually the kid's table is on the back of me. You know, you could see. I could put that wall to be clean, you know, put up the lights, maybe arrange some camera of my wife. She is doing photography with Canon and so. But no,
Mm.
this takes time. This is complex. So I put my phone here on the
Mm.
stand, simple
Yeah.
mic that just does the job according to the
Yeah.
editor of our podcast. And that's it. I turn it all. It's dirty here. Yeah, fine. But that's my environment that I could now afford. I just cannot put more
No.
effort, more complexity into that. But I want to
No need.
produce a show. I want to
Yes.
record this session. I want to talk to you, Marius, about good things.
Mm.
This is an
That's
example of simplicity, You are in an
nice.
environment. Don't get upset or don't
Mm.
feel bad that you cannot do something that you see on Instagram, something that you see that other
Mm.
YouTubers create.
Mhm.
So the background is so polished, lighting is so good, camera is so perfect.
Yeah.
You could fine-tune that step by step within months and years, Improve your camera, improve your setup, improve your environment around, build your office studio, whatever. But
Mm.
it never should be complex at the beginning,
Yeah.
Everywhere this applies throughout our day
Totally.
at work.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
is the biggest second tip that I would give. In programming, we have this even design principle that called KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. And I try to apply it to my daily life. And it helps with productivity.
I think it's so good. It's very good you mentioned this. I think it's one of the big tips to give in the profession that we do. Maybe we find some ways to find this focus, right? Like we set up things, we have our keyboard shortcuts, but I think most of all know other situations where this is not the case. Private life happens and it's sometimes chaotic. And I think it's so good to keep this in mind because it can block you so much just trying to figure out, like if the background is nice, if you have a nice shelf in the background. It takes so much time, It doesn't really let you do the thing you want to do. You're not very productive. And I think that's something really to keep in mind. It helps so much at work with the projects. You make a lot more progress. If maybe it's a solution, that's okay. It works. It does the job. Maybe it doesn't look pretty or it's not perfect. But like you said, for the project you just mentioned, it works. And that's kind of the goal. Yeah, very, very good point. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But for sure, this is like a preparation for productivity. This keeps you focused because your brain is not like overcomplicating things, And
Exactly.
that helps with focus. Now I can focus. We are recording this episode, talking about really good subject and so forth. But what about the disruption that you mentioned happens not because of you? Maybe if you are in the real office, public office, open office, some colleague comes in, wants to interrupt you, to ask a question, to offer to go for lunch together. Maybe it's you at home, the kid needs attention, maybe the postman came, but you are in a deep focus mode, let's say, working on some difficult task. How to solve this? Or maybe your phone is here and you are always put an eye on that and see another notification and wants to interrupt you. How do you deal with this, Marius?
It's a really good question. I think when you start working, I remember looking back, some years, and not so long, maybe like 5 or 10 years. And we had this thing last time, how do you start work? Where does your career come from? And I found it extremely hard, like I was in this very remote village. And of course, there's not many distractions, you're still a teenager, parents take care of most of the things. You can stay in your room. But even there, I found it hard to really get into this flow state that many people mention, which is, of course, good for work, but also sometimes can block you. So I had to figure out a routine where I can really get into this flow and focus on the work that I did. And then I got to clients, but the clients work in an office, right? There's other people, they want to see you. It's like, oh, cool, you're here. Let's have a chat. Let's have a coffee. And you're very exposed to this situation, right? With all the people around you. And I found that in the beginning extremely tough to deal with because I didn't have the practice. I didn't do any internships. So all these like human skills were pretty tough for me in the beginning to learn. And quite a problem. So over time, I realized that when I work at home, I can really go deep into things. Let's say I work on an illustration or I work on an app. I have this thing that you really can call profession over time, like you become a professional at a certain thing. You notice small details, you know how to put certain things into a piece of furniture or in software, you know where to look. But for those phases, you really want to be in deep focus. Nobody should distract you. But then I realized, okay, when I'm in the office, I don't have to do that work right now. There's more work that I haven't realized before. I should maybe think of a concept. I get some feedback from the clients. I talk to them. All the things that I didn't do before. I really focused on delivering a very good result, but without having to ask them. So I gave it to them, and feedback was, okay, you have to change this, have to change that. I kind of was disappointed because I thought I already delivered the perfect product or a task. So I think understanding that process a bit better, and like you said, not being dogmatic about it and say, I have to do the perfect thing right now. Because essentially what you do is you spend a lot of time, and I see that happening in the team very often, also with the students. It's kind of a blocker, right? Like you think you're doing something very good, but you kind of block out everything else to think doing the perfect thing and kind of repeat myself. But you see the point. So I think that's something to keep in mind, a very good tip to be more practical. Maybe not perfect, but discuss with the others, talk to them. And maybe if you're in such an open office, focus on those tasks while you're in the office. Then you book some hours in your calendar, 2 or 3, go to a room and figure out the details.
Yeah, very good point, and thanks for sharing the story about this. True. What you just ended up, I wanted to actually put my point too, that
Nice. So
deep work should be planned. Deep work should be scheduled. Okay?
Yeah.
And therefore, I set up 2 deep work blocks in my calendar. I put them in my calendar so not anyone else can book this time with me. I cannot be invited in meetings at that time. So people physically cannot put my email in because they will see that I'm busy at that hours.
Nice.
And this helps to achieve something. And obviously, before any deep work, I need to spend a few minutes upfront to figure out what will be that task that I will tackle. And then everything is off. I here on my computer turn on this focus mode, that no notifications are coming in. My phone is also on a shoot down, and I see only notifications from a whitelisted people, like my wife, for example. If she needs to bother, okay, that makes sense. But nothing else, okay? Nobody can kind of take my attention at work. Even I mostly work from home, but we are using some communication tool where always there is a chat possibility and so forth. I won't see this bubble. And I believe that most of the things, actually 99% of the things, doesn't need instant response.
Yeah,
okay?
Something I learned from you.
I believe that most of the things could be done asynchronous. So what does it mean? That means that if somebody needs from you something, you could receive that message, but you won't see it now. When the deep work hours are over, then you take it, you respond, you help out, and so forth. And when you book these hours on your calendar or any other way publicly make it visible for your colleagues, your peers, that these are these hours, then they will be kind of trained to do not bother on these hours, because they will not get and respond anyway. Okay? So this is an opportunity also for them to resolve the issue on their own first. Okay?
Also good point. Yes.
This is strong, I think, because many people I can notice, they try to, when they give a problem, they immediately want to share it. And that's probably right, because more brains could solve the thing faster. But it depends. Maybe that person who you try to bother is solving something more important now. Okay? And that will be interruption to help you in the cost of getting out of your mind circle, your deep work. And I think this is important, just to make sure that you could spend 1, 2, 3 hours in a row just doing the thing that matters. And this is where you get an output. I mean, I cannot imagine myself working 8 hours straight just programming. I just won't have that energy. Neither I will be productive for sure of doing programming 8 hours straight. So therefore, I consider, okay, I have in the morning a few hours deep work session, then later another 2-3 hours max. And that's basically it from a deep work. But there are other stuff that I shall do at work. I shall communicate. I shall create and plan next tasks for a future. I shall report certain things and so forth. Sometimes what helps a lot is do work together, at least in software development. And every day I do pair programming with somebody. So in this session, I believe in design you could do too. When two people are designing, really brainstorming right away. In this session, you are in deep focus automatically, just because you respect your colleague and won't get bothered into some notification, checking some website, checking email or so. You are now in this interactive state. Therefore, it's kind of gives you a guarantee that you are in focus. So I employ this practice every day at work. We do it. Great. I have 1 hour guaranteed that I will work with somebody. Today it will happen too in a few hours. And this adds to my deep work hours. But then, as I mentioned, administrative work, some homework, business-related work, whatever, that is still adds a value to my career, my project, and so forth. But obviously, it's not the deep solving puzzles that I do within these focus hours.
Yeah, I think that experience you just shared is so good. Really, it's very valuable, like in many different aspects that you said, because working in that deep work state for 8 hours can be very exhausting. And in the long term, that's of course not very good for you. You might just focus on that for a week and maybe deliver good work in that week, but the next week things look very different. And the other things you mentioned here is like something I really learned from you. When you started having a family, I was very curious how this could look like. Out of a sudden, there is not the whole day where you can say, I can now focus or give that time to my work. And once you said, okay, now, might just turn off the MacBook now at 6 o'clock or 7. And it has been a few years, but for me, it was a very interesting thing to consider because I didn't think about it yet. And I hear a lot of people who push themselves a lot. Of course, you want to be good, you want to deliver good work, especially if you're a freelancer, I think, because you have to juggle so much by yourself. You work as a freelancer. I've worked as a freelancer also for a long time and still kind of do sometimes. So setting that focus time-wise and saying, okay, now it's done, or now I'll do deep work, it's really good. I think that's something that's super helpful. For me, it was really nice to do that. Yeah. And the other aspects, just one more point. Yeah. I think the social behavior aspect of work is also so good because coming back to generations, we said that our generation, we still worked in the office. So we know these patterns and we know that they can be very productive. But most of you who might listen had not had this experience. You come from university or you did your training, and the last 5 years, that situation was not always there for everybody. Most people worked only remote and never experienced the situation of being in an office with 4 or 5 other people. And it can be recreated digitally. I think you can still do it digital, but it's really nice. I can only recommend doing it in person because, like you said, there is this pattern of respecting the other person. You put your phone to the side. And just like we are having this discussion in the beginning, maybe it's a little bit back and forth. But at some point, we get to this deep state like we are right now, and we can have a very good discussion. It's productive. Yeah, so I think, and I can only recommend that. Yeah.
I agree. Me too. I mean, talking and working with people in the same room, in the same place, helps to build a relationship way faster rather than you will do it virtually, even with a camera. Okay? I think this won't change. This is some kind of psychological thing that our brains receive information through our different channels and just visual that I see you and voice.
Yes. Yeah,
some
totally different
energy
experience.
exchange happens that is completely impossible online. Okay. And therefore going to the office time to time and doing this and practicing this, totally worth it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Back to the point that you mentioned, I shoot down my laptop and do another things. Yeah. We discussed back then, how I tried to transform this productivity after the first kid appeared. And I refer to the book called Grit.
Yes.
I will put it in comments. Beautiful book.
Yeah, good one.
And since then, I employed this separation. What is important for me? Important for me is my career. Important for me is my family. Important is for me myself. Grooming.
Yeah.
Okay? The order is not the right one that I put. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And when I do one thing of these three, I don't do any other. Okay? I switch completely. I did the work today, managed something, didn't manage something. I'm trying my best anyway. But that's it. I want to spend now time with playing with my kids, going outside for a walk with my wife together, spending their time. So I don't touch much my phone related to work aspects at that moment.
Yeah.
Then I want to take a break and do some sports myself, going for tennis with colleagues and so. I'm fully in there when I do this, you know. And this switch, being able to turn off a certain value that you already contributed and switch to another one, is so adherence to productivity. It at the end is something that makes your life fulfilled, I would say, because you could truly contribute full yourself at that period of time to that particular, how to call it, value. I call these three values: family, work, myself. Okay? And when you fully dedicate yourself to one of the value at that period of time that you decided, then you enjoy it. More you train this muscle, psychological muscle, to switch and do not allow anything to interrupt you in regards to other value you have, better you are at that. And you feel really good. An example could be, you came to work at the morning, you did the job, some bug appeared or something you had to solve. It was difficult, and maybe you didn't manage to solve it within hours you dedicated for work. You feel slightly disappointed. Maybe it's not so critical bug that could wait for tomorrow. And then you kind of switch. Okay, now I go to play football with my kid. And while playing, you're thinking about that work thing, and this is bad. So when you train your muscle to switch yourself like that, even in a hard conditions in one value, you will be able to switch to another and relax this way. Take a break this way. That will fulfill you to continue afterward with this problematic part. But this is training. This is training. So you do it like a muscle.
Yeah, and that metaphor is so good. Like we talked about running last time, and there are so many things in running you can improve psychologically and also physically. And that's something really I've taken from you over the years. For me, it was a big struggle and still is sometimes, the training that muscle. Because I think psychologically the theory is there, like you mentioned, those three pillars. There's things you do for yourself, you have things you do for others, and like the self-efficacy, like what you do to the society or people around you, basically. We notice, like if you build a product and you see other people using that product, that's really nice. Like it gives you something. For me, it's a feeling that is really much better than the pay, because you see that people like this, so you kind of have an impact on this. But that's something I really respect, where you have a lot of experience and the way you do it is great. Because for me, work has often had a very high value, because for a long time I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I only trained that muscle for a long time. When I was 17, 18, I finally found something that I like. And when I heard that kind of advice from friends in the past, or partners or family, to say like, look, maybe it's time to relax, don't burn out, do something else, and do some sports, see your friends. And I couldn't, because I tried to juggle all these things. Like I was working freelance in a different country. I still tried to do my master's degree. kind of had to start up with you together and try to hire some people. So there's lots of things, if you take your day as a freelance or manager, there's a lot of things to do. But it always happened like at some point I really burned out. I didn't really notice, but my health was not very good. I couldn't really work anymore, but I also didn't have a lot of other things to do, like go somewhere else to do other things. And over the last 4 or 5 years, I really tried to get better. Not there yet, definitely not. But I see that my productivity and my focus is so much better. I found the weekends, I basically turn my phone off. Like it's Saturday, it's mostly on focus mode. I don't even use it. I go outside, do some sports, go to the sauna, see some friends. I basically shut off. And in that case, what is really good, coming back to your 3 pillars, but just saying that when I get into this situation, what is really tough in the work we do, one point I want to mention is the way you experience time. Some of us might notice when you play a game or you in something that you really like in this deep flow state, time just flies by. Like these 2 hours when you work or when you're with your family, you play a game, you watch a movie, it's like the way you experience time is very different. You really like it, 2, 3 hours just over. And then you go to do a hard thing. Maybe, your car broke down or there's something that bothers you at home, whatever happens. Somebody gets sick. It's a hard thing. Like you experience time in a very different way. And that's something I think is very tough for us when you work on the screen or you do something digital because there's not really a response, right? Like your body always sits there. It's not kind of exhausting physically, but still it's kind of tough and takes a long time. Like you really experience 15 minutes way longer than the 2 hours you do deep work. And that's, I think, also a muscle I like to train because now I realize that when I have 8 hours or 9 hours of work, maybe sometimes it's 10, it's okay because time goes by fast. But in those moments where it's tough, I try to remember this and try to train to say, okay, it's okay. It's fine now. Something comes up. We try to fix it. It's fine. Might take also an hour. And last point. So on the weekends, I try to just be off and you realize like a day can be very long. It's really nice. You go outside, you go for a hike or you do something, go shopping, do whatever you like. And really be there for that day is amazing. Like it's so long and we can experience it in a really nice way. Yeah.
Good points. Yeah, what I would kind of add is to the point that you mentioned that you have to train to get you in certain shape. And a very interesting concept from this, how to train. Observe yourself. Recognize what happens. Try to understand how do you feel. How's your body? What happens? So you learn about yourself this way. And I think this is the only way, at least I found out, how to progress because you need to do not allow yourself to just go and do something like a flow, but rather than doing it, understanding what happens now with you. I have a good emotion, bad emotion. Why? What happens now? Is it good for me to do work at the morning? How do I feel? Or I'm more a night, evening person? Many times try, test, and reflect on how is it for you? Because at the end, we are very different human soul. And if I call it scientific kind of analysis of yourself, you try to really recognize what emotion you go through, what psychological state you have now in your brain, why you feel that or another thing, why you feel anger maybe, while you feel faith about something, why do you have believe in certain thing, okay, while you feel good, why, and how do I feel beyond just feeling good, like, am I eat good food this morning or no? What made me feel good? So analyzing yourself helps a lot to train that muscle. So you live a life of understanding. I remember I gave you one exercise back then. Can you try before sleeping to recognize when you are off?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a very difficult exercise because you have to be asleep and still recognize that you have control.
Yeah.
Until the last point that, okay, I'm close. that's it.
Mm.
And then you're gone. You don't remember
Mm.
anything next morning from that point when you realize
Yeah.
that that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
This exercise is exactly to train this skill, observing
Mm.
yourself. How do you feel? What happens now? Can you control?
Mm.
Do you control your
Mm.
breath at the moment? What are you thinking about? What interrupts you just
Mm.
lying, breathing, and getting into this sleep state?
Yeah.
Some minds coming, some thoughts coming about what? About work,
Mm.
about, So this exercise helps a lot to get better at self-evaluation, self-understanding. Even it's very difficult and we might not even strive to achieve that full control. But if you practice it a few times per week or so, you will get better at, in general, understanding yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, really. Like psychologically, I really remember you giving me this task. I remember we talked about it. I tried a few times. And I think during that period, I also started looking into this topic a bit more. I'm always kind of curious what the psychologist side says about those and trying to understand where it comes from. I think it comes full circle to what you talked about before, like when you said to me, what bothers you during the day, what kind of distractions you have. We also mentioned sleep, and I think this is a very good practice and training to get better sleep. And for myself, I kind of call it refactoring of the brain. I found it interesting when I first heard refactoring in programming, like what you do, kind of refactoring the code. And that's just something I found so powerful because when I take the time during the evening, mentally, what I do is I say, okay, I'm here now. I don't take my laptop with me home anymore. Like I go to the office, I leave it there. Then I go for a walk home. It's maybe like 30, 40 minutes, sometimes with friends. We hang out, just have maybe a drink or so, and I come home and then I say, okay, I kind of turn off the connection to work. Like you have your Wi-Fi switch, I turn off my connection to work. There's no media. And then I sit down and I'm like, okay, what's really bothering me? Why am I so intense? And in those moments, I really learned that being in the deep work state for 8-9 hours, your body it's kind of like you are on a sugar high all the time. It's like you're consuming a lot of information. Like we have so much exposure to news now, all the things you watch TV in the evening. And just like your stomach, your brain needs to process. You can just keep on feeding your brain with new impulses or input. And that's something I really value a lot. Like after 7, 8, I just turn off screens. Maybe some people say, okay, we can watch some TV. I do sometimes, or we go out and watch something in the cinema. But it's something very magical that happens with your brain if you just think about it now and like clean up. And psychologically it's so good because your brain also needs to clean up during the night. And when you get a good night's sleep, it basically restarts or cleans up the bugs and the things that happened. And yeah, everybody has different practice, but I can only recommend doing this. Like it's really helpful to get better sleep. So kind of feeds the whole circle now that we talked about. Yeah.
All right. Beautiful. Let's sum this up, at least these tips that we discussed today.
Yeah.
So the first
one more maybe?
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
Sorry. That's something I just wanted to get, very practical, easy tip with the phone and you have all the notifications. One thing you can try, just an exercise too, which I did. I really reduced a lot of apps on my phone. I only have one on my home screen. And what I can only recommend is when you talk to people at work, maybe keep those notifications on your MacBook with Slack and Teams. Don't have them on your phone or turn them off when you go home. And only people who are really important to you, you can call them or they can reach you on the phone. Simple tip, but really helps me to separate things and like calm down in the evening. But that's it.
All right, summing up our tips all together through the discussion. First tip was accept that you're human and it won't be perfect. Just try for your best to make sure that you are productive and you could be in focus for the time you need.
Yeah.
Second thing that I mentioned was what it was.
Blocking things or, separating parts. You talked about training your brain and having 3 sections in your life or 3 pillars, we call it. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So when you switch from one pillar to another, try to train to switch completely, so nothing bothers you from the previous one. You will continue next day. Deep work hours shall be booked on your calendar, so no one can take them from you. And this is where your most productivity will be going in.
Yeah. And then having maybe times with your colleagues, really encouraging to get together, work together, understand there's different kinds of work. And that's also good. Like improves your productivity as a team rather than just sitting by yourself, being in deep work 8 hours.
Keep training yourself. Keep observing yourself. How do you feel? Why? If you want, keep a notebook with these things. Technological one, turn off notifications. Make sure that your phone is out and you physically cannot be bothered when you don't need it to happen.
Yeah. Nice. That's a very good one, because I think a lot of people know the story about dopamine and what role it plays in your brain. We know it from social media. Everybody talks about it. But when you think about it really as a psychologist, dopamine is only the trigger for anticipation. And I think that's something very important, because when you get a dopamine hit, you kind of expect there's a like, something cool will happen. will get famous. I have 50 likes on my comments. But it's just an anticipation. It's not really the feeling or like a something that hits you when you achieve something. That's something more powerful, because if you really manage to get the task done and you see people using your work, that's really something like you having an impact. And that's actually not the dopamine hit that happens before. So I think that's good to keep in mind, that actually doing the work and finishing the task, focusing on it, feels much better than just anticipating something.
Yeah, absolutely resonates with me. Very good point, Marius. All right.
Good one to remember.
I enjoyed talking to you today. Really good discussion.
Likewise, same. Has been a pleasure.
Let's ship this episode soon.
Yes, let's focus and get it done.